The moment the storm hit, I knew we were screwed. We had landed on XO9, a barren, desolate rock orbiting a dying sun, with the promise of something incredible, alien ruins untouched by time. A signal had been pulsing from beneath the planet's surface, a pattern too precise to be natural. The scientific brass back at Central had theorized it could be an ancient vault, a treasure trove of lost knowledge. But the minute our boots touched the ground, something felt wrong. The air was thick, charged with static. The sky, a churning vortex of green and black, stretched endlessly overhead. And beneath our feet, a cracked, scorched landscape that whispered with every step, like something alive was breathing beneath the rock. Then the ground collapsed. We fell into darkness. My stomach lurched as the floor beneath us crumbled, sending our team, myself, Reynolds, Carter, and Bishop, plummeting into the abyss. Dust and rock spiraled around us as we tumbled, gravity pulling us into a chasm that hadn't existed moments before. My suit's sensors screamed warnings in my ears. Oxygen fluctuations, unstable terrain, structural damage, but none of it mattered when we smashed onto solid ground. Pain shot through my body. My helmet's HUD flickered, then stabilized. I groaned, pushing myself up. "Status!" I barked. Reynolds coughed, dragging himself upright. "Alive, barely." Carter's voice crackled through comms. "My legs busted. Not broken, but I won't be running any marathons." Bishop grunted as he tested his rifle. Gravity dampened our fall somehow. Otherwise, we'd be dead. My eyes adjusted to the dim, eerie glow around us. What I saw made my blood run cold. Massive structures loomed in the darkness, towers of black stone, jagged and unnatural, stretching toward an unseen ceiling. The walls shimmered with strange symbols, pulsing as though aware of our presence. The architecture was wrong, something beyond human comprehension, twisting in ways that hurt to look at. We had fallen into a prison, and the doors were opening. A deep, mechanical groan echoed through the chamber as the walls shifted. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as massive slabs of stone retracted, revealing corridors lined with towering, translucent cells. Something moved inside them. Shape. Unnatural, elongated limbs. Shimmering exoskeletons. Eyes, too many eyes, blinking open in the darkness. "Jesus Christ," Reynolds whispered. A warning flashed across my visor. Life forms detected. Unknown classification. Biohazard level Omega. The cells trembled. Then the locks disengaged. "Run!" I roared. The first creature burst free in a blur of motion, moving impossibly fast. It slammed into Reynolds before he could react, its limbs snapping around his body with sickening precision. He screamed, his rifle clattering uselessly to the floor, before the thing wrenched him backward, vanishing into the shadows. His screams cut off. I fired. My pulse rifle roared to life, lighting up the chamber with bursts of white-hot plasma. The creature moved like liquid, dodging between the blasts before lunging toward me, jaws unhinging, revealing layers of needle-like teeth. I threw myself aside at the last second. It hit the ground where I had been standing, the impact cracking the stone. Carter and Bishop opened fire. The air filled with the high-pitched whine of energy rounds as they tore into the beast. It shrieked, something between a metallic screech and a guttural howl, before slithering back into the shadows. The other cells were still unlocking. More things were waking up. I grabbed Reynolds' fallen rifle and bolted. "Go! Go! Go!" We sprinted down the nearest corridor, the walls closing in around us. The structures pulsed, shifting as though alive, adapting to our movement. Behind us, a chorus of howls rose, a cacophony of nightmare sounds. They were coming, and we had nowhere to hide. The corridor twisted like a living thing, walls pulsing as if they had veins, the stone itself shifting underfoot. We ran without knowing where we were going, only that stopping meant death. Or worse. The creatures behind us weren't just chasing us. They were hunting. I could hear them, moving in the dark, their claws scraping against the strange, ancient metal, their whispers slithering through the air like 1,000 overlapping voices. There in the walls, Bishop gasped, his rifle trained on the shifting shadows. They're everywhere, Carter spat, limping but keeping pace. I slammed a fresh energy cell into my rifle, breathing hard. We keep moving. Find a way out? Carter let out a bitter laugh. Out? This place is a goddamn labyrinth. I didn't argue. The prison stretched in every direction, a maze of impossible architecture, stairways that led to nowhere, doors that opened into voids. The deeper we ran, the more the walls seemed to breathe, reacting to us, almost as if guiding us somewhere. And then we hit the pit. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, a circular platform suspended over a bottomless chasm. Massive pillars of black stone loomed on either side, covered in glowing alien script. The air hummed with energy, ancient and malevolent. At the center of the platform, embedded into the ground, was a console. It pulsed. A control panel. A way out? Or something worse? Bishop took one look at it and shook his head. Nope. No way. That thing is screaming trap to me. Carter wiped blood from his face. You got a better idea? Because unless you've got wings, we're running out of road. A growl rumbled from the corridor behind us. Multiple. The shadows moved. The things had caught up. I made a choice. I ran to the console and slammed my hand against it. The entire chamber shook. The script on the pillars flared, energy surging through them in violent pulses. The air turned electric, crackling as something massive shifted beneath us. The pit wasn't a pit. It was a gate. And I had just opened it. The creatures screeched, their voices twisting in fury. The walls tore apart, revealing hundreds, no, thousands, of pulsating pods lining the depths below. Inside each pod something moved. Something woke up. And then the screaming started. Not from us. From them. The hunters. The nightmare creatures that had been chasing us. They recoiled, their bodies twitching, their forms glitching, like something was overriding them. They weren't the prisoners. They were the guards. And we had just freed whatever they were keeping locked away. Oh shit, Carter whispered. The first pod exploded. A being stepped out. It was wrong. A towering, skeletal figure, clad in chitinous armor, its head elongated, its multiple eyes glowing like embers in a furnace. It moved with purpose, its limbs clicking as it studied the room. The hunters charged. The figure raised a single hand. And the hunters disintegrated. Not exploded. Not burned. Just unmade. Gone in an instant. Bishop took a step back. Nope. Nope. I am so done. More pods burst open. More of the ancient beings stepped forward. And they all turned to look at us. I raised my rifle. It felt like an insect pointing a slingshot at a god. One of the beings tilted its head, regarding me. Then it spoke, not in words, but in a pulse of energy that slammed into my skull. You have freed us? I swallowed. That wasn't exactly the plan. Irrelevant. The floor shook again. The pillars shattered, their energy flowing upward into the beings. We were betrayed. Cast into the abyss. Bound in chains of time and silence. The air turned cold. Now we rise. Carter whispered, we really should have left those doors closed. Then the entire prison started collapsing. And the real nightmare began. The walls shattered, debris spiraling in slow motion as the prison's ancient structure gave way. The air crackled with energy, an unseen force warping reality itself. And in the middle of it all, the ancients stepped forward. Not running. Not rushing. Marching. Their towering forms moved with unnatural grace, their glowing eyes locked onto the world ahead, unbothered by the destruction unraveling around them. The hunters, the creatures that had stalked us, were dying in droves. Their bodies twisted, torn apart by unseen forces, their screams cut short as their very essence was erased. And still, the ancients did not acknowledge them. They only looked at us. You are fragile. The words weren't spoken, but they sank into my mind like ice-cold blades. I barely choked out a response. We were just trying to get out of here. Then run. Bishop didn't need to be told twice. Fine by me. He turned and bolted. Carter was right behind him. I lingered for just a second too long. That's when the world broke. A sound erupted, like the fabric of reality screaming, and the air ripped open. A colossal tear formed in the sky above us, revealing a churning, roiling void beyond. And from within it, something pushed through. It was impossible to describe. Not a creature. Not a shape. A force. A presence. I felt it more than saw it, an overwhelming, mind-shattering entity that dwarfed everything around it. The prison had been built to contain monsters, but this was something worse. And the ancients turned to face it. For the first time, their movements became urgent. One of them lifted a hand, releasing a pulse of raw power, enough to make my skull feel like it was about to split open, straight at the void. The force struck something hidden in the darkness, and it shrieked. The world buckled. Stone twisted. Gravity collapsed. The air filled with the sound of 1,000 voices screaming in unison. I stumbled back, grabbing onto a crumbling railing as the prison's foundations collapsed, entire sections plummeting into the endless abyss below. Run. The voice wasn't the ancients this time. It was something else. Something from the void. And it was laughing. I turned and ran. We sprinted through the crumbling ruins, dodging falling debris, leaping across collapsing platforms, desperate to find any way out. There! Bishop shouted, pointing. A door. Massive. Alien. It pulsed with energy, flickering between dimensions. The exit. We just had to reach it. Behind us, the battle raged. The ancients and the void thing were locked in war, their powers colliding in a cataclysmic storm that made the air itself warp and bleed. I didn't look back. We reached the door just as the ground beneath us collapsed. Carter lunged, grabbing onto the edge, fingers slipping. I caught his arm, straining, pulling him up. Move! Bishop roared. The three of us dove through the gate. Just as the prison vanished behind us, the last thing I saw was the ancients, standing against the darkness, their bodies glowing with power, holding the void at bay. Then the gate snapped shut, and everything went white. We woke up somewhere else. A planet. A battlefield. A graveyard. The ruins of an ancient war stretched in every direction. Ships, structures, corpses. Things not human, but not quite alien either. And above us, a fleet. Massive. Looming. Waiting. Then a voice. You brought them back. We turned. And saw something worse than the void. The voice rumbled through my bones, an echo that didn't just exist in sound, it existed in mind, in reality. You brought them back. I turned. And froze. The being standing before us wasn't an ancient. It wasn't like anything we had encountered inside the prison. It was taller, wrapped in segmented armor that shifted and pulsed as if it were alive. Its face was a swirling void, shifting between different alien features, a grotesque collage of faces that were neither human nor fully monstrous. And behind it, the fleet. Ships unlike anything in human record. Vast, colossal, covered in sprawling organic technology that seemed to pulse like a living thing. They waited, engines thrumming with a presence that made my skin crawl. They were contained for a reason. The being stepped closer, the air distorting around it, like reality itself was barely holding together in its presence. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Bishop did better. He aimed his rifle. I don't know who the hell you are, but we didn't. Silence. The weapon disassembled in his hands. Not exploded. Not broke. Came apart, its components unraveling like a forgotten concept. Bishop staggered back. Okay. Cool. That's terrifying. Carter whispered, we need to get out of here. The being cocked its head. The shifting faces on its body flickered through 1,000 expressions at once. There is nowhere left to run. And behind it, the sky split open. I knew what was coming before I saw it. The prison was gone. The ancients had fallen. And now? The void had followed us. It ripped through space, unfurling like a massive, gaping wound. And from its depths something writhed. Massive. Endless. A being of pure hunger, a cosmic infection, something that should never have existed. The fleet reacted instantly. Alarms blared. Ships shifted, their forms bending into impossible shapes, weapons humming with raw, universe-ripping energy. And the being before us, its faces screamed in unison. "You have doomed us all." And then, everything exploded. The first impact was beyond anything I could comprehend. Weapons fired, the sky erupting in a storm of black lightning and dimension-tearing energy. The void being retaliated, tendrils of sheer nothingness slicing through the fleet, consuming entire ships in one touch. Reality fractured. Time collapsed in on itself. I saw 1,000 futures, 1,000 pasts, all layered over one another. In one, I was already dead, my bones stripped clean. In another, I was still running through the prison, time lagging behind. Carter screamed. Bishop grabbed my arm. "Move, damn it!" I snapped back to the present. We ran. The ground twisted, becoming something organic, something breathing. We sprinted across a battlefield that didn't exist yet, dodging shadows of possible deaths, our bodies flickering between existence and oblivion. And in the sky, the fleet fought back. Massive weapons fired, reality-ripping blasts tore into the void being's form. For a moment it reeled, its shape fluctuating, losing cohesion. And then, it laughed. The sound was wrong. Not a noise. Not a voice. The concept of laughter pressed into my skull like a brand. You cannot fight what is already inside you. And that's when I realized. The void wasn't just attacking from outside. It was inside us. Bishop staggered, his skin crawling, his veins blackening. He looked at me, eyes wide, terrified. "It's in my head." Carter dropped to his knees, clutching his skull. No. His shadow moved on its own. Then it lunged for him. I shot it. Not Carter, his shadow. The bullet tore through nothing, but the thing screamed. Carter gasped, sucking in air like he had been drowning. Bishop's skin stopped shifting. The void had found its way in, and it was trying to consume us from the inside out. Run. The voice wasn't the aliens. It wasn't the voids. It was Reyes. I turned. She was standing there, intact, whole, but her eyes black as endless night. "You have to go," she whispered. Bishop raised his gun. No, you're dead. You got sucked into the—" "I know," she whispered. But I held on. She looked up. The void being was winning. The fleet was falling apart, its weapons failing, its defenses crumbling. The last war in the universe was being lost. And then Reyes said something that made my blood run ice cold. "It doesn't want to kill you. It wants you to bring it home." The void being wasn't destroying us. It was waiting for one of us to break, to surrender, to let it in. And then it would spread. The war wouldn't stay here. It would follow us back to Earth. I looked at Reyes. She smiled. "One of us has to stay behind." I knew what she meant. If it takes us all, it wins. But if someone holds the gate... The void being descended, a massive tendril of endless nothingness, reaching toward us. Bishop grabbed my arm. "I am not leaving you here." "You don't have a choice," I whispered. I turned, and ran toward the gate. Reyes was already there, hands raised, her body glowing with something unnatural. "I can hold it." "Not alone," I said. The void being descended. I grabbed her hand, and pushed every last ounce of strength I had into the gate. It reacted instantly. A pulse ripped through space, a shock wave that slammed into the void being, sealing the tear behind us. The last thing I saw was Reyes smiling, as the void consumed her instead of us. And then, the gate snapped shut. Silence. The battle was over. The fleet was gone. The sky was whole again. Bishop, Carter, and I stood in the ruins, breathing, shaking, alive. But I felt it. A whisper. A flicker of blackness in my vision. Reyes was gone. But the void had touched me. And I knew. It wasn't over. Not yet.